Hello everyone, welcome back to another collection video, and today we're doing an actor collection video, which you can see is going to be Dick Van Dyke with this Dick Van Dyke Show collection behind us. I'm going to go through all of our things for one of my all-time favorite actors, a great treasure that thankfully is still with us. And we will start, of course, with the Dick Van Dyke Show. Go through all the Dick Van Dyke Show stuff briefly, as I'm going to do a dedicated Dick Van Dyke Show episode as well, because that definitely, I think, needs a little more time to get into, as being one of my three favorite sitcoms of all time. We have this Dick Van Dyke Show collection. This is a multi-disc set that includes several best of collections. It's a really fun set that has 2 volumes put together by Carl Reiner. We have the best of the Dick Van Dyke Show on 1 volume, and then the second volume has Carl Reiner's favorites, which is interesting to see the entirety of, what episodes those end up being, because some of his are ones that I would immediately pick as some of my favorites, and some are not. So it's really cool to see his perspective on the Dick Van Dyke Show, as well as the the best of include a lot of the ones that are frequently on collections. And then, of course, the Dick Van Dyke Show has been released in its entirety several times on DVD, and for my collection I went with what I find to be the best release, just maybe not in terms just of quality, but as far as the actual, if I want to get a physical thing, the box set. I love the way this series looks from Image Entertainment. They did one big series box set, and then this one with the lenticular covers with scenes from the season. Looks like a TV screen. Just love the way these look. So the entirety of the Dick Van Dyke Show. Season 4, I love that moment with the blow-up boat. Fantastic. One of the great classic family sitcoms. Amazing cast, but amazing writers, and just everything involved was perfection. But really, I think what makes it the timeless classic is Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. 2 of them together were just absolute television perfection. And you'll see as I move quickly here why I want to do a whole dedicated video to this show and talk more in depth about some of my favorite episodes and things. We have the Dick Van Dyke Show, the classic Mary Tyler Moore episodes. A lot of my favorites really involve Laura Petrie heavily in the plot, and so I did that collection, as well as this classic Halloween episodes, which isn't necessarily like Halloween, but ones that have sort of a spookiness, I guess, to the plot line. Ghost of a Chance, May Look Like a Walnut, and The Cat Burglar, Long Night's Journey into Day. And my overall 2 favorite seasons of that show are the complete 3rd and 5th seasons. So we have, this is the Image Entertainment, or the older release, while in between the 2, so you have the real old ones, and this would be like the middle of the road. And then from the remastered collection that they did from RLJ Entertainment of season 5, as well as on Blu-ray 3, 4, and 5. Those would be my top 3 seasons in these Blu-ray sets, which I adore these. Not only are they fantastic quality, but the special features are fantastic, and part of what they include, which is great, is a lot of commentaries, both by Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke, and they're fairly recent given the age of the show and the actors as well. It's all kinds of different stuff with Van Dyke and Company, all kinds of different things, background stuff. Great extra features for all of the seasons on Blu-ray. Then last up, the things for the Dick Van Dyke Show. They made a mistake, and there were a selection of episodes of the Dick Van Dyke Show that went into the public domain far earlier than they should have. So over the many years, there have been a ton of collections of classic TV shows, and many of them include these same few episodes of the Dick Van Dyke Show. So there are a couple of episodes, like season 2 episodes, that I don't have the Blu-ray or anything because I already have many copies of them, as they were put into these different collections. We have A Man's Teeth Are Not His Own, Bank Book, Hustling the Hustler, Her Name a Duck, Give Me Your Walls, and The Night the Roof Fell In. So those get included in many of these different TV comedy collections. We have this Best of TV Comedy, Family TV Classics. Here's Dick Van Dyke again, because those are in here as well. There's Classic TV Comedy and TV Classics Volume 2. All of these include some or all of those public domain episodes that are also very frequently found on VHS as well. A couple of Dick Van Dyke Show collections. So if you love the Dick Van Dyke Show as much as I do, I consider it to be one of the greatest television shows ever made. Make sure you look out for that episode that I'll be putting up eventually, giving you more of a deep dive into that show and that particular part of the collection. But moving on to more of the Dick Van Dyke stuff. Dick Van Dyke, part of why he has become one of my favorite entertainers, singers, performers, actors, was the experience of growing up with him during my childhood. The Dick Van Dyke Show I found through the Nick at Night broadcasts. That was one of my favorite things in the history of television, was Nick at Night, and I found a lot of my all-time favorite shows through that, as well as some of my favorite childhood movies, things like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the VHS here, and the DVD. These were movies that I would watch constantly as a kid. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Mary Poppins, the 40th and then the 45th anniversary DVD set. Particularly when I was a kid, watching them on VHS, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Mary Poppins were ones that were in all the time. And my favorite part of both of those movies was Dick Van Dyke. I just was gravitated towards his performances, and he was always just this friendly, smiling face. He was the kind of guy that felt like this fun, happy uncle you never met. Just the personality that, as a kid, always gravitated towards, and just really loved those two movies in particular, and then the Dick Van Dyke Show, as well as then discovering some of the other Disney classics. He was in a handful of Disney movies, even though it's mostly remembered for Mary Poppins. This was another favorite of mine. Some of the others were ones that I liked to watch a couple times as a kid, but never really found them to be fond repeats for me. But Never a Dull Moment was one I really liked, where Dick Van Dyke is mistaken for a mobster, and just hilarious situations with that mistaken identity storyline. I always really enjoyed that one, as well as the Anne Margaret version of Bye Bye Birdie. As far as that musical, this movie adaptation was always, this is the one I grew up with Janet Leigh, Anne Margaret, Maureen Stapleton, and of course Dick Van Dyke. And this is one that I just randomly caught on TV partway through and started watching because Dick Van Dyke was on screen. I'm like, I don't know what this movie is. I've heard of the musical, but I was fairly young and started watching. And then I'm trying to think, I was in elementary school, and our local high school did Bye Bye Birdie, and that was the first time I saw the whole thing. And then eventually I rented this version on VHS and then on DVD now. And the other thing that Dick Van Dyke, growing up, these were, of course, things that were mostly before my time. Watching them on VHS or old reruns on television. But then one of the staple shows of daytime TV and like weekend TV, we would watch things like Matlock or Dr. Quinn, and also Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke. And this was a show that was one I would just randomly catch, during the day, particularly on weekends when I was a little kid. Saturdays or Sundays, after things like grocery shopping and chores and stuff, be doing things, particularly our old house downstairs, while my mom was doing the laundry. And this is one of those kind of daytime TV shows that was on, Diagnosis Murder. I just had the first season here, as that's the season that for some reason sticks out in my mind the most, and the one that I would revisit over time. Another era of Dick Van Dyke, and one of my all-time favorite episodes of Columbo, which is my favorite TV detective show, is Negative Reaction, which I have on DVD in the Columbo season box set, but then I wanted to buy, in particular, imported years ago from Japan, before there were any Blu-ray releases here in the US. They would have these remastered Blu-ray sets with a pair of episodes, and this one includes the Dick Van Dyke episode, Negative Reaction. And great 60s comedy that I've always thought was just a lot of fun, has a lot of my favorites. Elka Summer has always been one of my favorite actresses, and of course Dick Van Dyke plays the main character in The Art of Love with James Garner and Angie Dickinson, when he's a struggling artist who is convinced that, when do artists sell best? After their death. So fake your own death to create your own success. And then everything that starts from that point on is fantastic, and is a great comedic performance by Dick Van Dyke, and he pairs really well with Elka Summer. So that was always a movie that I enjoyed. And we have this Comic Legends line, the Dick Van Dyke in rare form. This is a great look at some older Dick Van Dyke comedy routines, pre-Dick Van Dyke Show and his Disney fame. It has a bunch of different comedy performances on various programs from the 50s. And here we have, describe some of the highlights here. We have Babysitting Father, Mailing a Letter on a Windy Corner, Daddy's Little Girls, The Pet Cat, Sneaking In, and The Tennis Champ, as well as has some musical performance as well. It's one of the great things about Dick Van Dyke is that he is not only just a great comedian, both with wordplay and physical comedy, he also can do great dramatic moments, and he's a fantastic singer, a great dancer. He's just anything. He can really do anything, and I feel like that's part of why his star powers lasted so long, is that this comes across as this charming, nice, genuine person who then can do kind of any art form. And this is a great little collection, a look at a different era of Dick Van Dyke. And talking about the musical aspect of his talent, we have the Mary Poppins original cast soundtrack on vinyl record, this old release here of that. As well as Dick Van Dyke, Songs I Like. And a book that I just recently found at a thrift store and hadn't had the chance to ever read before, so I was happy to find. We have Dick Van Dyke, My Lucky Life in and Out of Show Business, a memoir. And there's so many other great things that Dick Van Dyke has been in over the many, many decades of his career. So many other movies that I've seen over the years, and of course the rest of Diagnosis Murder, a whole bunch of different stuff. Some stuff that's been practically lost to time, like the new Dick Van Dyke Show. I've seen a bit of that. So I would love to hear what some of your favorite Dick Van Dyke TV shows, movies, performances, whatever are, what are the things that stick out to you? Because this is just kind of a drop in the bucket. But these are all my favorites of things that have stuck with me over the many years. Things that are, near and dear to my heart that I revisit. I'd love to hear what your favorite memories are, or selections of media are for this legendary actor, Dick Van Dyke. Really solidified his legacy as one of the greatest American entertainers.